This is Pop Culture Yearbook. On this show, we pick pieces of pop culture that were important to us in a given year, and we then discuss our memories and dig into those movies, albums, shows, and more. I'm Brad.
I'm Pete.
And I'm Giff.
If your faces always catch me off guard and make me
It always catches me off guard.
and you react.
Well,
like,
you started so enthusiastically like that.
I
that
tried
was
to
a
be
That was a
enthusiastic.
banger of an opening, Brad.
Yeah.
Brad's on fire early.
all right.
Yes,
I'm working
he
on my
is.
opening.
I like it.
And speaking of opening, we're not going to open anything just yet. Last week
hold on.
we drafted our favorite greatest hits albums, and we hope that if you missed that, you go back and listen to Garth Brooks and our really good draft that we did at the end of the episode. But 2 weeks ago, we did our Guns N' Roses episode, and we made a list of best guitar solos. And I said on air, I'm going to make a playlist of all these songs, and I was doing that last night. I had forgotten, and last night I did it. And I'm adding my songs, and I had Sister Christian by Night Ranger, and I'm like, holy shit, I don't remember having Night Ranger on my greatest hits list. And that's one of my favorite greatest hits albums that I always had as a kid. So I wanted to, before we close out officially from last month, I love Night Ranger. I love their greatest hits album. And I want to say that we tragically forgot them. But now they got a special shout out instead.
Yeah,
They'll
we'll allow
forgive
it.
you.
I'm gonna make some calls and straighten it all out, but I
Maybe
think we
I
can get it
can
figured out.
get, I'll try to get Jack Blades on the show with us to make it up to him.
That would be
There you go.
sweet.
I know Jack Blades because I know of him by name because he was not only a Night Ranger, he's one of the guys from Damn Yankees, which we all love Damn Yankees too.
Mm-hmm.
We too.
All right, do you guys have any forgotten business from February stuff we love?
No, I don't think so.
I don't
think
think so.
I felt pretty solid about everything. Oh yes, I do have one thing. I got in trouble. I in that same episode I said that I located my No Fences CD. Courtney actually found the CD for me, so I needed to give her credit. So sweetheart, there you go. There's your credit on air.
Exact words, Greg. That was a Brady Bunch episode.
Mm-hmm.
Pete,
So-
what about you? Are you in trouble?
I'm not in trouble yet, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, you
Let-
are.
Kick off what we're doing now, Pete. What are we doing first?
Well, there is one thing that you might want to mention that I thought maybe there'd be one more thing that you'd want to mention before we start. Is that anything that might be going on tomorrow at all, or anything
Oh
like
yeah,
that?
I'm not sure. I don't know if there's anything
Oh.
special.
What he really milked that out of.
Yeah.
It's Pete's birthday tomorrow. Although,
Yes.
hear this, everybody.
As of when we're
long
recording
gone.
it.
Yes.
Yes.
But you
I
can
told-
retroactively, after listening to this episode, go back and wish Pete a birthday. A birthday.
A birthday.
I-
Hey,
Wish
hey,
me
Pete.
a birthday. That's
Birthday.
that's all I ask.
Have a
for.
birthday, Pete.
Birthday.
We know that happy is a bit out of reach. We want to be realistic.
Yeah, have a
So
birthday.
let's just go with birthday.
Yep.
Wish me a birthday.
Oh,
And
I'm glad you brought that up because we should bring that up, and we'll get you tomorrow.
Yep.
okay.
Absolutely.
Well, I am told that there will be a surprise for me when I wake up tomorrow morning. So we'll see what that is.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
that sounds,
Oh, interesting. Is
No,
that
it's not going to be what where your heads are going. I don't think.
Okay.
But
well,
if
then it should have been
is,
phrased that
hey,
way.
I'll take it.
It's a big
Take whatever I'm
sense.
given.
yeah?
No, she
Well,
said it
my
when my kids. She said it when my kids were around and everything. So
Oh, okay.
I don't think it's going to
weird.
be. If
Well,
it
it wasn't-
is,
it
I'll let
wasn't-
you know.
Pete, it wasn't in reference where my head was going. Let's just put it that way.
I think that closes the
Heyo.
official business on February. Then
On
We're
February.
moving on now.
That
Pete.
is.
So now.
the
What are you
official
going to do?
business. Now we're going to open the yearbook to page 1982. This is
Yes.
going to be a kick-ass year. I'm really looking forward to it. We were 6 years old that year.
We're,
Yes.
you know
Long
what?
time ago.
We've actually done
Yeah.
this before too, so we want to throw that out there. Remember, Pete? Remember that you and me?
Yeah, and
4 years
it
ago.
was. It seems like that was over 40 years ago, as it is. But
So if you
But
are
it's
a
not.
newer listener or whatever you might be, the OG pop culture yearbook episode was from 1982, but it was just me and Pete. And it's, what is it, 2 hours long? Well, actually, we're getting too long now lately on some of these, but it was a little different format. We didn't have Gifford with us. And so what did we talk about? I made this big mixtape of all these great songs from that year that I
You did.
loved. We talked about Prince 1999 a little bit. We had to
Right.
inaugurate, we're from Minnesota. Do you remember your choice, Pete, of what you brought to that one?
I don't. I wish you
Oh
had
my God,
asked me
I
to
remember.
prepare.
It was the game shows. We talked about game shows.
Oh yes, that's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
So-
I forgot that was. I actually have a couple of game shows on my list for tonight, but
That's a good idea.
Oh, that's a great idea.
so there might be something selected from the game show genre.
So if you want to go back and hear the origins of this show, and why wouldn't you? You can go back and listen to that 1982 episode, and then compare it all month long here, and see how Gifford has improved our.
Yeah, I don't know if
Brad's
I
having a
hope I
coughing
have-
attack. He's put
Right,
himself
yeah.
on mute. Let's broadcast this while he does it. Oh, he's we think he's okay, folks.
Pete, the way I was hoping to improve the show was to cover for that and just keep rolling because, as they say in showbiz, the show must go on.
The
And not
show must
bring
go
it
on and
to
watch
the
him like do
attention.
the watch him start pounding his chest.
He's
So anyway,
verklempt.
we have a month long format now. We're gonna hit into that, and it's 1982. It's a great year, so there's a lot of stuff that we can say, and we have new choices and new topics to talk about. So it's gonna be a good time. But if you happen to be confused because you saw it once on our playlist, that's because we did do it, but this is different.
First of all, we want to thank you for your extreme dedication to the
Yeah,
podcast.
if you know that
for-
we have a 1982 episode,
Listen.
thank you.
Right.
and you stuck with it. This has been almost 5 years now, right? Probably
years
since
ago.
that.
When we
4
started
years.
this.
That's almost 5.
All right. So when we begin the month, we got to talk about our memories. So you mentioned we were 6 years old. I'm talking. I'll just go first here. I don't
Sure.
have a ton of memories because we were only 6 years old. But I was in kindergarten and first grade in 1982, finishing that first year of kindergarten,
Mhm.
heading into first grade. You're meeting your new friends. So I had met Pete before because our parents knew each other, and basically Pete's been around me in my life since the day I was
I've been
born.
around him.
almost.
Yes.
And so, but we had, new friends. And so a lot of friends that we still have, like Travis and Terry and Haken and Chad and all these guys
Lem-
that we met way back then. We don't live near them anymore, but we're still good friends and we still see them. And it's pretty cool that we still have those connections from so far
Well,
back.
when that's one of the advantages, right, of going to a small school. The total graduating class was 55 students, and so it's like you truly do become like family to these people that you started out in kindergarten with, and you get all the way to graduation day, and so you're seeing these people every day. When it's a small town, there's really a group of 10 to 15 really super tight, and it was 3 towns. And so Brad, the ones that you're mentioning are just the ones that are from Tyler, and so
Okay.
you form a really tight bond with those guys, and so it was great.
And just to clarify, we only were really Tyler at this time. We were only
Mhm.
RT, but Russell had its own elementary. So we didn't know
Yep.
Gifford, till
No.
5th grade. And we didn't know anybody. till-
Those were the days.
So it was just people who lived in Tyler, who lived right down the street, or in my case, or your case too, a farm outside of town there. Speaking of farming, that's what my parents did at this time. This was I've mentioned this on the show at least once before, but kind of a rough time. Talking to my parents one day about this, I think that it was during this year maybe that they sold off all the cows. So we milk cows. And they sold them off and kind of moved on from that. And things, as the 80s went on, the economy it wasn't really good to a lot of farmers and to us. And so eventually, bit by bit, we kind of quit doing that. But I'm so young, like I have no idea what's going on. But I know it wasn't easy for them. But I do have this wonderful memory where my mom would be in a tractor late at night sometimes, finishing up things, and I would be out laying on the floor of the tractor right under her feet. There'd be like a little blanket on there. It'd be just enough room for my little body to fit there. And I can still remember laying there on the tractor, like sleeping, as it's dark as she's working. And that's, I think, just one of my favorite memories that I can imagine because it was such a cool time. And one other thing that I do know happened this year, because we have some pictures that have some dates on them. So this was the year that my family took a trip up to the cities, and we visited the Metrodome, which opened in 1982, and we went to a Twins game. And during this year, there was no air conditioning yet in the Metrodome, and it was so hot and it was so
Wait a
gross.
second. Oh yeah,
What?
it did open in '82. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
But in addition to going to a Twins game and seeing this new fancy Metrodome, we also went to the IDS Tower, which is the tallest tower in Minnesota, and we went up to the top. At that time, you could go up to the observation deck, and I thought that was pretty cool, and we took pictures up there too. So these are a couple of things that stuck with me from being 6 years old that I still remember today and loved. And that's about what I remember of 1982. Pete.
Those are great. I know I mentioned this on that lost episode of 1982 that we did, but I do remember being on a farm and just how fun it was to be able to go run around. And what I remember most is that every 4th of July, we would go across the border to towards Brookings, South Dakota, just on the other side of Lake Benton, out in the middle of nowhere. And I think it's probably still there, but just right across the state line, there's this fireworks stand facing the Minnesota side, because there's fireworks that are not legal in Minnesota, but it's obvious what they were doing. So we would go there, we would stock up, and then we'd go back to the farm and just shoot them all off. And it was just fun to do that. We would get a whole bunch of them. And so in that week or two, just before the 4th of July, you'd take a few out and shoot a few more and shoot a few more. And of course, you save the big ones until the 4th. But it was just fun going out and doing that. And
we only lived about 15 miles from the border, so it wasn't like a big production if you wanted to go buy some fireworks.
Right, exactly. And so, yeah, it was a really great time. And just my mom had a craft store. I don't know if you guys even remember this, but a little craft store that was on Main Street in Tyler for, I don't know, maybe 2 years or so, right around this time.
No idea.
It was actually right across the street from the post office. Do you remember that white building that was across the street? Anyway, never mind. I digress.
Terry's
No, I'm talking about from the post office. Terry's Electronics was across from the dentist. Anyway, it was the plumbing place there for a while, owned by the Borison family.
Yes.
But anyway, we move on. And then my dad worked for my uncle selling farm equipment, and my dad sold parts for farm equipment, and so that's what he did. And yeah, just some great years being on the farm. My personal memories. I did hang out at that shop at the Christensen Implement in Tyler, which still exists. It's still going strong. Everybody loves it. But I spent a lot of time at that shop, going upstairs. There's like a big kind of loft area where you could go. It was just a great time to run around and play when you're a little kid. And it was fun. Over to you, Giff.
Gotta say though, we were a John Deere family, so we didn't frequent the Christensen Implement.
Because that was New Holland.
Yep, not John Deere. Alice
Right.
Chalmers.
Alice Chalmers in New Holland. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Now
that's where
Duke's
we would
Alice,
go to.
it's-
Was the Christensen?
Yep.
For our stuff. So I grew up in a world far, far away from Tyler, just Russell, Minnesota. When you're 6 years old, 7-8 miles seems like a
May as
a
well be
galaxy
China.
far, far away. Right, exactly. So I grew up with a different group of kids. I remember Miss Lean, I believe, was the kindergarten teacher there in Russell. So this would have been going from kindergarten to first grade. I don't really have a whole lot of memories other than a good friend of ours, Mike Erdman, of course, was in my class in Russell. And going from in kindergarten, my best friend was named Brian, and Mike's best friend was named Mike.
Yeah. So
And those two-
doesn't change for you.
Those two kids happened to both move between kindergarten and first grade. So then Mike and I were left without best friends. So then me and Mike became
Well,
best friends.
what about there's plenty of other great guys from Russell. What
Oh,
about
there-
Highness?
yo.
What about
Highness and Gravely, yeah,
But they
Dwayne.
weren't
I mean,
named Brian or Mike.
right,
Oh, I
exactly.
got it.
So I was used to hanging out with Brian, and Mike was used to hanging out with Mike, and we lost our best friends. So yeah, that's the one thing I remember from that early time. Yeah, that's about it. I don't know. I turned 6, and that was
Glad you mentioned your
something fun.
teachers. My Pete, I don't remember which classes you were in. My kindergarten teacher was Mr. Blake. I remember that, and my first grade teacher was Mr. Robbie. Pete, do you remember who you had?
Do you know what? My kindergarten teacher was also Mr. Blake, but my
Yep,
first
I thought
grade
so.
teacher was Mrs. Steen. I want to give a shout out to Mrs. Steen and and just how great of a teacher that she was. I know that her son is a follower of us on Facebook, and a great friend of your family, Brad, of your
Yes.
brother and sister, actually. So, if you're listening, his name is Kent. If you're listening, Kent, I know he's a juggler. I think he's does a little magic too, doesn't he? Like he's a magician, juggler, and taekwondo expert as well. Yeah.
Taekwondo, yes.
So
So
All right,
we
we'll try
had
to
we
get
had a
him up.
music teacher named Mr. Steen. Were they married?
yeah, they were.
Probably.
And then
That's
they
the piano teacher that we brought up once before too.
Yeah.
I mean, they
yes.
got divorced. I don't know if they were married at this time, but
They were,
Okay.
yeah, but they were.
But they are-
It is the same Steen name.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, because he was in Russell, and okay, so she would have been in Tyler. Excellent.
All right. Well, there you go. There's our memories. If you're from a farm, you might have found that interesting. And now we're going to talk about our things we love to draft, our movies and our music and our TV, and what's coming up this month. So you don't want to miss that. So,
Correct.
usually when we do these things, especially like in the 80s, like, I mean, the movies are they're amazing. They're great. This is the first year where I really had to stretch to find enough movies to add to my list. And there's some of these movies that I don't think I've ever even seen.
I
But
was
if I do,
surprised.
I'm going to draft them anyway. So, I mean, we were only 6, but you would think over time we would have, gone back and seen so many movies. But to me, this is a dud of a year for movies compared to what we're used to. So we're going to start with those. Maybe you guys
Especially in the
disagree.
80s.
But Gifford's going to have the first pick for the movies, followed by me, and then Pete.
All right. So 1982. I had a bit of a tough time too. There's some great movies in this year that I really like. But I got to be honest, I don't even have 15 listed, so I'm hoping you guys don't pick
Oh,
everything
boy.
off my list. So I'm
Risky.
gambling. Yep.
Good thing you got that
I'm
first
gambling.
pick then.
That's right. So, one beauty movie that came out this year, we're going to be talking about it later this month, and I'm going to take it as my number 1 overall pick, and that is Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
That is a banger to open it up with. Even
And I
if
believe we would all agree that was the highlight of the year. We all would have picked that first. That's the one that we would have all liked the best.
Yeah. And to be
Yes.
fair, to be sure here, I'm not watching this movie when I'm 6. I'm
No.
not watching pretty much most of these movies at this point, but obviously you go back and watch them and they're awesome and you love them. So we're gonna cover Fast Times this
Well,
month.
I'm going to pick a movie that I bet Gifford hasn't heard of, that I think Pete has, that I was watching at that time. This is one of these little hidden gems of a movie that like completely left your mind. But like back at that time in the early 80s, my family and we watched this movie many times. And it was about this girl who was kidnapped by like a couple bumbling guys. And it's called Savannah Smiles. And it's the sweetest, most wonderful little movie. And I loved it as a kid. And we all watched it together like many times. Pete, do you remember that movie?
I remember the movie. I totally neglected. I didn't even come across it or think of it for this list. So could have. I'm
I'm not
surprised
aware.
you took that as number 1.
Well, I know I could have waited on it, but like if I'm picking like the movie that stood out to me the most, that's the one that's next on my list right there. So
All right.
Sweet.
I'll be curious.
Well-
Hope we'll get some people online to respond to us. I'll be curious to see how many people
Right.
know that movie and if they remember it as fondly as I do.
Mhm.
All right. Well, I think I'm going to go with the biggest movie from the year altogether. And I remember going to see it twice in the theater. And I just loved it. I've watched it with my kids. It is E.T. the Extraterrestrial.
Yeah, a little known movie there. That's a good pick.
E.T.. Yep, that's a good one.
All right. Well, I'm excited to get my 1 and 2 pick here. I'm going Rocky 3. I mean, I love the Rocky movies. I love the training. They were awesome. And of course, when they come on TV, you'd watch them and then you'd, run around the living room boxing, hitting your brother and whatever, because you're all hyped up watching Rocky movies. So that is
They'll do
my,
that.
yeah, right. That is my number 2 pick.
With Mr. T. That was the one with Mr. T.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. Yes.
By the way,
That is
Savannah
correct.
Smiles had Peter Graves and Pat Morita in it.
Ooh, Pat Morita.
Oh,
nice.
really?
Yeah,
It was before Karate Kid.
correct. 2 years before Karate Kid. All right.
Oh, by the way,
so-
let's
yes.
get this episode moving, because after this, I'm watching the last episode of Cobra Kai. I had to throw that
Oh.
in, but I'm very excited for it.
I finished it. All right. This is another movie that I definitely saw as a young kid and thought I saw this one before the first one, I'm pretty sure. As a kid between like 6 and 10 years old, I think I thought this was the funnier movie because I saw it so many times, and that is Airplane 2.
Yeah, I knew you were going to take that one next, Brad.
See, and I saw that one, but I honestly don't remember it, so I did not write it down. Of course, Airplane I've seen a million times. Brad, can I thank you for taking that? That was not on my list, so now I'm covered.
Okay.
I'm good for the
And
list
I
of
don't
50.
think Airplane 2 is nearly as funny as I remembered it being as a kid. I don't think it's even close to the same league as Airplane, but I haven't watched it in so long. Maybe it's not as bad as I think.
It's not nearly as good as the original, but this was the first of this kind of movie, Brad, I think, that we were exposed to, and we hadn't seen anything like it. And you're right, we saw this before seeing the original, or at least I did, and so it was great at the time. But it's I've seen it since. It's not nearly as good as the first one.
I knew that.
But my pick is one of my favorite fun movies, and I was just blown away by the graphics and the special effects of this one at the time. Again, you go back and watch it now, it looks a little corny, but at the time, I loved it. I love the video game. I'll still, when I go to Up Down, I will play the video game for this. It is Tron.
Yeah, and Tron was
Up
one
Down,
that I
by the
never
way,
watched.
for those not familiar.
Oh, go ahead.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. You never have seen it yet. I was just going to say Up Down to explain it. It's Uptown Minneapolis, and there's a bar there. It's a full bar and everything, but they've got all old school classic video games,
Arcade.
like the arcade games that you still just have to put in 25 cents into the machines for most of them. And so it's a great time. And they have
Sounds very
Tron.
nostalgic.
At least they did the last
Yes.
time I was there. Yes, it is all about
That's-
nostalgia. Which
That's
is
what it's
we
made for. Is the nostalgia
Mm-hmm.
of old guys like us that want to go play a stand-up video game.
Yep.
That's right.
All right. I'm going to take Star Trek II Wrath of Khan. Really, really enjoyed
Ooh.
that one. Again, a movie that I saw on television for the first time. Absolutely loved it.
I
Ricardo
never got
Montalban
into
as
the Star
Khan.
Trek movies. I could not get into them. I watched all the Star Wars ones. I was a
Mhm.
Star Wars guy. You know, there's a big rivalry. You can't be both.
Right.
And I could not get into Star Trek. I've tried, but I couldn't get interested.
I'm more of a Star Wars guy myself. But yeah, I've seen most, if not all, of the Star Trek movies, I
I have
think.
never seen a Star Trek anything. Never
Really?
once.
Okay,
No, I have no interest, and I've never had any interest.
fair enough.
So
Well,
there's
then I
that.
could have left that one to the 5th pick, huh?
You,
There
well,
goes.
you could-
You remember how Brad was Mr. Excitement when we opened the show? That guy left.
That guy left.
Well, this next one made me pretty excited in all the wrong ways. So I'm picking this movie next because it had a significant impact on me as a person.
I know where you're going.
It was a movie that I never should have seen at the age that I saw it.
Oh,
It
yep.
destroyed me. I didn't watch it for years and years. If I saw it on TV and saw like bits of it, like I like physically had to turn the channel or turn away because I was so screwed up from it as a kid. I did rewatch it finally about 3 years ago. My wife and I and my son watched it together, I think on Halloween. And I know it's a really good movie. It's a Steven Spielberg movie, and I'm picking Poltergeist because
Yeah.
I now have come to accept and respect it for what it is. But I saw it when I was like 7 years old, and that clown, and that is just it just fucked me up.
Still,
Yeah, you were talking about
Like
Can
that.
you
no other
imagine-
movie has no other movie has ever done to me before. It just was a problem. So I'm proud I overcame it 40 some years later, and I will add it to my list. There you
Mhm.
go.
imagine the person that Brad would be today had it not been for that movie.
I wouldn't have any of the
Uh-huh.
reputation of being Mr. Negative.
Right. Because you'd be Mr. Positive all the time. You wouldn't have the Dickens scared out of you at such
I
a young
love
age.
clowns. I would think they're so cool.
Mhm.
All right, my pick. Well,
Yeah.
we just as of the time that we aired this, just a couple of nights ago, we had the Saturday Night Live 50th reunion, and this individual was very prominent in it. Had a couple of big roles in skits. I'm talking about Eddie Murphy, and he had 48 Hours in 1982, and just a great movie. I loved it. The sequels were okay. But this is what started it all. I think this was Eddie Murphy's first big movie, was it not? So
If
I'm
it's
going with
not,
it.
it's got to be damn close.
No, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it's, yeah. Good pick. Great pick. All right. I'm going to take one that kicked off an entire franchise. We were introduced to John Rambo in First Blood.
Yeah, we didn't
That
have
was
much.
Nice.
awesome.
We didn't have much worry about overlapping our picks on this GIF.
Okay. Yeah, I loved.
Right. The next one I'm
loved
going to
Rambo,
pick is
First Blood.
probably a controversial choice because I know it's one of these movies that has not aged well at all. But if there's a movie that I know I watched at 6 years old multiple times, besides some of the ones I've mentioned, this was a huge one. It was about a kid, and it had Richard Pryor in it, and it was The Toy.
Oh, the toy.
And you got Richard Pryor and you got Jackie Gleason, and
Mhm.
but it's from what I know, it's not okay anymore. It's
The plot
It's not.
the plot is very problematic. It's a
but
funny
if you're
movie,
picking the
and if you
movies that
accept it
you
for what it is,
if you're picking the movies that you watched and that you remember at that time, I got to put it on there.
That movie is a pop culture hole for me. I've never seen it.
I think that's okay. I don't think
Okay.
that's really.
that's yeah.
Okay, well, I mean,
You
Richard Pryor,
don't want
some
to
good
coming
stuff.
on here and saying this is the movie that made me who I am today.
okay, fair enough.
You don't want it to be the toy.
All right.
Okay, is it my turn?
Yes,
All
it
right.
is.
I'm going to go with one that we have talked about on the show. We did a whole episode for it, courtesy of Gifford. Because I did not watch a lot of horror movies, but I did respect this franchise and I enjoyed the franchise. I'm talking about Friday the 13th, Part 3.
Yes, the 3D movie.
Yes. And if you have not listened to that episode, that's one of our best ones of all time. Go back and listen.
We
Mhm.
also did Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4 in that same episode. It was a
Oh, did
was-
we?
it was a 2 movie. Yes, it was.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
So you get a
Some good
double
stuff.
dose classic 80s.
That was a
horror
lot
movie.
of work then.
Okay, so my last pick. I'm not going to take the critically acclaimed movie. That might be the safer choice, the more highbrow choice. But I'm going to go with one that introduced me to Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm going Conan the Barbarian.
All right.
Okay. So my last pick, I want to pick something I know I watch. Well, I'm going to do this. So I am going to pick a movie that, again, I'm a 6-year-old kid, and I definitely watched it and loved it. And it's going to tie into a pick I might make later tonight and my pick for the month. This is the year Bugs Bunny's third movie, 1001 Rabbit Tales, came out. Do you remember how they had some Bugs Bunny movies? And they would basically be a compilation of the Looney Tunes with a thin, thing tying them all together.
Yep.
So this is, that's my choice because, I know I watched, the one I remembered more was actually the fourth movie, which was Daffy Duck's Fantastic Island. But I watched them both. 1001 Rabbit Tales.
And like you say, it's appropriate for your age at this time too, so that makes it all the better.
Yes. And I stuck true to my guns on this, but I am well aware that I will probably get votes on the poll when we do this from only me and nobody else. So I am aware of that. I just wanted you all to know.
Yep. Well, and you only had Poltergeist was the only one I had listed off of your list.
Well, I picked that just so I had something on it that people might recognize and not totally rip my list apart.
Sure. All right, Pete, what's Mr. Relevant here in the movies?
Probably the most classic movie from 1982. Certainly very groundbreaking. It's a great movie. In fact, they made it into a musical, which my wife and I saw at the Orpheum about 2 years ago, I want to say. Although the musical wasn't quite it didn't live up to my expectations, but it is a great movie starring Dustin Hoffman and Bill Murray. I'm going with Tootsie.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the one that I was looking at picking, but again, you got to go with your heart. I had to go with my heart on number 5, and Conan was more up my alley.
Terry Garr and Jessica Lange also in that movie. Great.
Not sure if I've ever actually seen that movie all the way through.
Tootsie?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, it's solid. Yeah.
Oh, I know it's a good movie.
Yeah.
The next choice on my list would have been another sequel that some people claim is better than the original, but I think they're just trying to be contrarian. That's Grease 2 with Michelle Pfeiffer.
I can't see that.
I have not seen that all the way through.
And I remember there being a song in there that really spoke to me. It's about sex education or something. I mean, I can still picture that. So Grease 2 had definitely an impact on me. Porky's, there's one you try to catch on HBO.
Yep.
This one really wasn't dirty, I don't think, but it was the best little whorehouse in Texas with Dolly Parton and Burt Reynolds.
That was like the 9th biggest film.
Yep.
And there was an Oscar nominee out of there. So, yeah, I've never seen it.
I got 3 more. Annie was a big one that we probably all watched as kids. The movie Diner with Steve Guttenberg and a bunch of guys. That's when we had Netflix discs, when that all came out, and you could go back and just order any movie you wanted. I watched all these old movies, and I watched Diner about 20 years ago for that. And then my last one, Pete, this ties directly to you. We were at the Holiday Inn in Sioux Falls.
God damn it! I've got it on this on my list too. I know
Okay, what movie
going.
am I talking about?
Well, it also I think had an impact, a little like Poltergeist did, probably not as much. But you're talking about the one where a guy gets his arm ripped off, right?
Yep.
We're talking about Cat People.
That's right. We saw one scene together. Some adults were watching it in the hotel room. And it was pretty freaky, and that's what we know of Cat People.
Excellent.
I'm so glad you remember that. That's wonderful.
Yes. Are you done with your list?
Okay. I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done.
Pete, you got any more?
Yes, I do. I have Blade Runner. I have Night Shift, Pink Floyd, The Wall, and Dark Crystal.
Okay. Yeah, and see, what was the first one you said? Blade Runner. That's another one. Tron and Blade Runner, 2 movies that I've never. I tried to watch Blade Runner one time, and it just wasn't grabbing me. I might have not been in the right mindset. A couple that I got The Thing, a Clint Eastwood movie that I think I recorded off of television and would watch it quite a bit. Firefox, about him going to Russia as a fighter pilot and stealing this top secret plane from Russia. And then the last one, An Officer and a Gentleman.
Oh yeah.
So there's
I have that on my list. That's a big one.
Yeah,
I should mention I had one more on my list that I had as if I needed it I just listed HBO because we had access to HBO, and so I would just that's how I saw a bunch of these movies.
Mhm.
And so
Well,
I knew you wouldn't like it if I picked that, Pete, but it was on my list. Just HBO movies.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I would vote very much against that. I would be. All right, where are we going next? Music?
We
TV.
are going to
Oh, I'm
TV
batting
with
lead off now.
Brad.
Oh,
Oh, I'm
TV. I'm
first.
sorry. That's
I'm
right.
first.
No, Pete, you get the. Yep.
Followed by Pete and Giff on this one. Okay, so I mean I got the first pick, but I don't know what to pick because these are all just really good shows. But if I'm thinking back, I'm sorry, I'm going to take it because if I'm thinking back to the show that I watched the most, it was Friday night, and it was the whole lineup of shows. But the one that would speak to me the most as a 6-year-old was the Dukes of Hazzard and the Good Old Boys. And Pete, now I'll let you mention whatever else you want to about that.
Well, I mean, we'll talk about we'll
Yeah, but they
talk
don't know-
about it in 2 weeks, right? And it coincides with a request. I'm going to give a shout out right now to Jason Gilling, our good friend from back in Tyler, listens to the show and put in a request for this one. I said, hey, why not? We're doing 1982. It'll be perfect. So looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So Pete picked it for his choice, but I picked it for the draft. Dukes of Hazzard, but with Luke.
I think that's all three of our number one. If we had the first choice in this, I think that would be number one pick for all.
Well,
of
I mean,
us.
I could go with any of the Friday night shows, really, but I
Yep.
mean, that's got to be the top.
For our age, right?
Just for
And,
Daisy alone, my God, that was my first love. Daisy Duke.
And while
my brother
we're
had a
while
really
we're
good poster of
shout,
her on his wall.
I remember that.
Ooh, can you have a bad poster of her? I mean, let's be honest. You know, from back then. Another shout out for Jason. Jason's one of the guys who will reach out to us quite a bit on the socials and comment. So thank you, Jason. Keep it up. And yeah, we've got an episode coming up for you here in a couple weeks.
Yes, and his support is always wonderful whenever we see it.
Mhm.
Unwavering. It's unwavering is what
Yes.
his support is.
And we
The best
appreciate it.
kind.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best kind. It doesn't waver.
What are you picking, Pete?
Ah, my God, you took the best one off the list. But I am going to go with one that we've also done a really good episode on, and I'm talking about Newhart.
Well, this is the year it started. We talked about the ending of
Yeah.
Newhart.
Yeah,
The year
yeah.
that it all began with
It
that
was on my
horrible
list. It was on during the year.
Kirk, the
Yep.
worst character ever.
All right, I'm gonna go right in my wheelhouse for my age in this one. I'm going Saturday morning with Bugs Bunny and the Roadrunner show.
Oh, you took it. I see. I was going to take that first, and I figured I'll probably get it a little later.
No, that's I have three things highlighted. Dukes of Hazzard, of course, number one. But I got one more highlighted. We'll see if I get it.
All right. Well, I sniped Pete's pick. Gifford sniped mine. Next week we are going to have. I mean, it's going to be awesome. We're going to talk about Looney Tunes and 10 of the greatest Looney Tunes cartoons and more. But we're really going to dig into 10 of the best ones of all time. And it's because it's my favorite cartoon. Every one of it's. I don't like. We'll get into it next week. But that was my entire life when it came to cartoons was Looney Tunes. I didn't get into much else.
It's a good one to get into.
Yeah, it is. Oh, it's my pick again.
It is.
Well, then I'm going to go from the Good Old Boys, and now I'm moving on up. I'm taking the Jeffersons.
Ah,
Oh, that was a great segue.
yep. Head north of the
Alright.
Mason-Dixon line.
Oh, they would make me
Could
laugh.
not find
Even as a
you could not
6-year-old.
find any more opposite plot lines for TV shows as those ones, right? But
And
but well
setting,
done. You
right?
are very the whole
Yeah, the
setting,
setting,
the whole
sure.
thing. Right, maybe. Okay, well, what'll I do, baby? I'm gonna go with Family Ties.
Oh, what
See
a
what I
leap.
did there?
I got it. Also, the year Family Ties started.
Yep, this is a good
Beginning-
year for new shows, I think.
The beginning of Michael J. Fox's rise.
Right.
Gifford?
I'm just writing down his list here. I'm gonna go with one you could watch Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Happy Days.
That's
Happy
right.
Days.
That was the other one I had highlighted. So glad I got 2 out of my 3 there.
All right, well, this worked out then. I'm just going to take the whole 2-hour block. You got the Dukes, you got the Jeffersons, and you got Alice. And we've professed our love of Alice on this show. And if there's 3 shows I remember watching back to back to back, it was those 3.
Yeah.
Kiss my
right.
grits.
Great pick. And of course, Lindsay's going to love that pick.
She better.
Yeah.
This is a great episode of ours for Mr. T, because he's going to get 2 shout outs. He already got one with Rocky 3, and I'm going with the A team as B.A. Baracus.
Mr. T.
Oh, I love it when
He wouldn't pity this episode.
No, I love it when a good list comes together, Pete. That's excellent.
Well done.
Yes, thank you. All right. I'm going back to Saturday morning. I'm going to go with Super Friends. The DC Comics
that's
Super
a
Friends.
kick-ass one. I loved that one. That was my favorite. That was appointment TV for cartoons, for sure. Good, good pick.
Thank you, sir. Never saw it.
Nope.
You get out of here.
Bugs Bunny.
Yep.
All right, well, I'm getting my top 4 choices here. Now we move to, I'm pretty sure, Saturday nights. And, this is just that comfort show. What better show to comfort yourself at any age, and with guest stars galore, and it just looked like so much fun. You got to take something exciting and new.
Yep.
The Love Boat.
Love Boat. That was good. It's like we rehearsed it.
I like it.
Just not very well. All right. Well, I am going to move into the game show genre. For me, this was the greatest game show of all time. But it sucks now. This had the original host, and it was just the best every single night at about 6:30. I think it was on. I'm going with Family Feud with Richard Dawson.
Ah, the Richard Dawson years.
You cannot beat the Richard Dawson years.
The inappropriate
kissing on the lips.
It was fine at the time. It was fine at the time.
Yep.
All right. I don't know if I want to be taken out of context. I might edit that out that I said it was fine at the time. I'm just saying it was
clearly accepted at the time by everybody watching. So it's
right. All right. I'm not going to edit it out. I'll leave it in.
So we got Children of the 80s. They're doing TV theme songs, right? So we've got some bangers in here. We had Dukes of Hazzard as the #1 overall pick. I'm going to take another show, great theme song as well. I'm going to take another show with another great theme song and more than one girl in bikinis here. I'm going Magnum P.I.
Oh, well done.
That's not even a real gun. Yeah, it is. It's a Magnum P.I.
The Magnum P.I. Funny.
Name that movie.
Right. I'm going to go to a daytime show now, too. Now, I didn't watch this show at the time, like I wasn't watching it, understanding it, or paying attention, but it was on every single day. As I mentioned, my parents were farmers. They would come in from working. We would have you had dinner. It wasn't lunch. It was called dinner. And you had supper at night.
And we
would have dinner, a real dinner every day at noon. And they would watch Days of Our Lives. And later on in my life, I watched Days of Our Lives every single day in college and beyond. And I wasn't able to do it. The one episode of this show I've ever missed. You guys even interviewed Tony DiMera.
Yes, we did.
That's right. One of their best.
Bringing it all together full circle.
Well, you were murdered by him.
He did kill me. You can go find that great episode about a year ago, too. So it was on every day, and it had such an impact. I could tell you about Bo and Hope and all this stuff going on back in the early 80s.
Well done. Well, is it my pick now?
Last
I'm gonna
one.
take it. Well, this is probably the first big sitcom that I can remember. Well, maybe Alice, but this was one of the biggest and best ones that I can remember watching religiously. Come and knock on our door.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Someone's waiting for you. Three's Company.
Yes.
And all these great theme songs, and they just disappeared. Just
Right.
something
Yeah.
killed by
Gone by the
society.
wayside.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Say,
Cool. We're
Can
in
I-
the era
can I-
of great podcasts now.
can I ask you guys today, for example, did your kids have school today?
No.
We
Well,
did not.
online. We had a
It was too
virtual day.
cold.
Right. So it's a stay
My
home day.
kids didn't even have that. Nope.
Back in the day, you'd have a snow day, and when you're home from school, what are you watching?
Price
When
is
you're
Right.
sick or you're on a snow day, you're watching The Price is Right
Yep.
at what is that on at 10? I think it came on from 10 to
10 a.m.
11.
Central. Yep.
Yep. So Price is Right was a big one for me back then as well.
And I mean,
Not
I
so
went
much
through
during
a
the school
phase-
year, but
not just
My
the
mom
game
will tell you
show,
that I
but
went through a phase. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Brad. Go.
But at the end of the show, you got to see, always these models in bikinis too, as Super 7
Mm.
Sports would always point out. I mean, that was a big
Mhm.
deal. You got a little
Oh.
bit of everything from The Price is Right.
Yep.
Sorry, Pete, your turn.
My mom will tell you that I went through a phase where I would not respond to my name. You had to call me Bob or Bob Barker, because that was I nicknamed myself Bob Barker, and that was
Was
it.
your
That-
dad like Barney on How I
like
Met Your
Barney
Mother?
Stinson.
No, I just went and asked him. I thought about that when I watched that show, but
Would
Oh,
would
God,
you
yeah,
walk around with
Price
like
is
a
Right.
like a long skinny stick with a bulb on the top of it, like one of those skinny mics?
well, in a matter of speaking.
Oh, okay, there it is. That was a whole different story.
Anyway, go on.
Walked into
All
that
right.
one.
So a few more
else
TV
you got?
shows. Speaking of
I got a
the
few.
we did this one. It's coming out soon. The theme song, Silver Spoons, we talked about with Children of the 80s. Here's a show I know Pete will remember. We love Jim J. Bullock and Ted Knight, baby, in
Yep.
Too Close for Comfort. If I didn't pick Days
right.
of Our Lives, I could have picked Dallas. That's the other show my parents watched, and that was on Friday night. Like, I mean, that
Yep.
everything I
After
watched
Dukes.
was into Dallas.
Right after Dukes.
The only other like Saturday morning show that I did probably want to watch at this time was the Smurfs, which I mean that didn't last long, but American Bandstand was a Saturday morning show that I always like to watch.
Mm.
You had Different Strokes, you had Square Pegs with Sarah Jessica Parker, you had Chips, One Day at a Time, you had the
Mhm.
spinoff of One in the Family, Archie Bunker's Place. Remember that one? And then much
Yeah.
like HBO, I added MTV because I did get to watch MTV, and that's what I would watch all day long in some of these cases. So those are all my extras.
I had a couple of extras. Do you remember the show That's Incredible? I used to watch that all the time.
Fran
Starring Fran
Tarkenton.
Tarkenton. Yes. And there's a few others. There's a similar show called Real People that I watch. And then I had Tic Tac Doe as a game
Yes.
show.
That's one of the game
and
shows we
that's
talked
my
about
list.
on the original episode. You picked Tic Tac Toe,
Correct.
Wheel of Fortune. I can't remember what else, but those are two of the ones we talked about.
Yeah.
A couple others I had Benson, TJ Hooker, Scooby-Doo cartoons, Saturday morning, that was a big one. The Incredible Hulk, Knight Rider came out, I think, this year. And then I would get off the bus at about 4 o'clock after school and rush into the house, and I would watch Captain 11. And
Oh.
we would have 3 cartoons on, generally Looney Tunes cartoons, but Captain 11. And who was on Captain 11?
Me.
Brad?
Dave Dedrick. Oh.
I was
No.
in the audience. Me and my sister were on Captain. One of us should have picked that. Pete Gifford, you should have picked that. That was a great one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was
Captain 11
high
was
on my list.
local, from Sioux Falls, the local like kid show with kind of like the Bozo
Captain
show.
Kangaroo.
Captain Kangaroo, right?
Yeah.
But he was called because it was Channel 11 that
Yep.
he was on, and he would have, and kids got to be in the audience, and then he played cartoons, and I was on it once. Saw a highlight of my life.
I think I was on it too.
Highlight of my life.
I mean, I was on TV, 6, 7 years old. That was a pretty big deal. Dude,
Yeah.
Guy's married to a beautiful woman, has 2 lovely children, and
That was it.
It was on
It was
camera.
all downhill from there.
I know what you meant. All right, we are going to dig into the best category we feel for this year. Pete is going to kick us off in the music category.
Yeah. So
I
as
am going
said,
to
before you go, Pete, I just want to throw out, if you listen to our other 1982, I made 2 mixtapes with A and B sides. One that was pretty much big hits we heard on the radio all the time, and one that were songs that I learned about probably later. They were more of the new wave songs. A lot of them, though, I would see on MTV. And I might pick some of them here, but like it was great. And you listen to these songs, and it was so much fun. So there's a lot of music out there from '82, and it was a wonderful time.
I'm going to tell you, sometimes on this one, if we're flexible, you can go albums or songs. I did all
Yes.
songs on my list because there's so many great individual songs. I wasn't into as many full albums, but there's just a ton of great songs here. I'm going to start it with one of my favorites, John Cougar or John Cougar Mellencamp, whatever you want to call him, or John Mellencamp, Jack and Diane.
That is excellent. So we're going to take off American Fool then, the album, if you pick the song.
If you want to pick a different song, you can do
Yeah.
that.
Well,
Right.
so like on
But
my
the
mixtape,
album.
I had "Hurt So Good" on there, so like I
Yeah.
could pick that later,
That's
right?
a
if I
great
want.
song too.
Pete,
Jack
Jack,
and
and
Diane,
Diane
just to
is one of my
simplify-
all-time favorites.
It just
So
no
great.
other song defines Americana better than that one, in my opinion. And so
A little
it's
ditty.
just great.
Yeah, it is a little ditty, and it's a great ditty. So in the movie section, Pete took the biggest movie like of all time for the longest time with E.T. This year also had the best-selling album of all time, and I'm going to take that. I'm taking Michael Jackson, Thriller, came out November 30th of 1982. 7 singles, number 1 for year end in 1983 and 1984. So 70 million
It came out in
worldwide as of, it came out late in 82.
Yeah, November.
But as of 2009, 70 million copies sold worldwide.
And it's kind of funny, or interesting for us at least, that Pete was over the other night along with some other friends, and we were playing my original Nintendo. We had a little
Nice.
nostalgia night, but we listened to some records on my record player, and we listened to the original Thriller album, and we were kind of like disappointed. There was one song, and they were like, "What is this song?" We didn't even know what it was. Okay, remember the name of that song, Pete?
Was it the very last song that
I don't remember.
or
But it was like we're all of us. There were 6 of us, and none of us had a clue what that song was. I was like, This is surprising that there's only 9 songs on this thing to start with, and we were stumped.
Can I
But it's so
good.
ask?
we had fun.
Can I ask who won at Double Dribble?
I beat
Get
Pete
out of
twice.
here. No, you may not ask. You may not ask.
Not only did I
Yeah.
beat
Well,
him,
if you're
by,
play,
I beat him by so much he quit, just like I did the previous time.
I threw my
Well,
controller down and I left the
I'm
room.
back, baby.
So-
well, you say you get together with Pete and you're playing your original Nintendo. That automatically means that Double Dribble was definitely.
played 2 games and
was
Brad
definitely
wiped
out.
the floor with both times.
But
But
I
I beat
will-
him at Tecmo Bowl, which I don't think I've ever done before. I don't beat Brad at Tecmo Bowl very often, that's for sure. So by 2 touchdowns.
I had that game.
Was the name of this?
Gave it
Was
away.
the name of the song "The Lady in My Life"?
Yes.
That was the last track.
Oh
Okay.
my God, that was terrible. We couldn't believe it.
Well, that's because he
is it-
wasn't really singing it with feeling. You know what I mean? He wasn't singing his truth. I don't think.
So by picking Thriller, that means all songs are off the table. So like my favorite
Yes.
song, "Wanna Be Starting Something," I can't pick that now. That's how this works.
Sure.
That's
Yes.
right.
All right. I'm kind of like Pete. I do have a couple albums listed, but there's so many good songs here that, oh, you know what I'm going to pick? I mean, there's so many that I could choose from, but there's one song that like stands out to me It's my favorite one-hit wonder of all time. It's one of the first songs that I loved. It had this insanely weird, great video on MTV where they're all in their overalls with no shirts on. I'm picking "Come On Eileen"
Yeah.
by Dexy's Midnight Runners.
Yep.
I cannot
And that
hear
song,
that song
I
without
really
thinking
did.
of Clerks.
Without thinking of Clerks, sure. That song I really didn't get into until
Reading off all the movie titles, and that was one of them.
Right. Second year of college was one of our main themes at the house we would hang out at before and after parties. So when I think of "Come On Eileen," that's what I think of as Morris sophomore year.
It's just one of those songs that I just always never got sick of it. And I'm
Mhm.
sure a lot of people have, but not me.
Yeah, it's great.
All right. Brad, I think that you might have had on that mixtape that you made last time. I think you might have had this one on, "Heat of the Moment."
I did.
That's a
loved
great,
my brother had
great
the
song.
Asia tape.
Yeah,
No,
by
you know what?
Asia, and it's a great song. It's got a little story behind it too, and I like it. That's a good
Actually,
one.
I gotta correct that. I didn't, because on this mixtape, I'm always contrarian. I kind of had mostly the second biggest hits. I had "Only Time Will Tell" by Asia.
Oh my god! Oh my
Which-
god! What a nerd! God,
is
you're such
just
a
as
freaking
good.
nerd sometimes.
It's
And-
just as good as
and-
"Heat of the Moment."
God. I thought I remember talking about "Heat of the Moment" too. We had a whole conversation about it.
Well, I'm sure
How
you brought it up.
Gonna ruin everything.
I
But that's
don't
my pick.
I don't understand how that ruins
All right.
anything.
No, yeah, everybody can have their
Great
favorites.
album with multiple good songs on it.
Well, I'm going
My
for bang for the buck here. I'm taking another album, huge album. Being a homer again, I'm going Prince's 1999, October 27th of 82. Of course, he had 1999, Little Red Corvette, Delirious. This was number 9 on the top 200 Billboard albums.
Yeah, that I almost picked that one. Kind of thought, you don't usually pick albums, so I thought maybe I'd get it later, but
Sure.
oh well.
It's all songs for me from now on. Those are the albums I got.
Yeah, I mean, Asia was one of my albums, but that one has already been used. So I am going to pick an album here, though. This is a tape
Oh,
that I believe my sister owned this one, and I might have had it myself later, or maybe I got her copy at some point. But this is one we talked about in that episode. They had like 3 really awesome songs, at least on this, and that is Yaz, Upstairs at
Hmm.
Eric's, with the song "Situation" and "Only You." And there's a third one on there too that was like a big don't let go or something.
okay.
But that was kind of one of my first introductions to kind of the alternative, the new wave music, and then I actually had the tape in my house, so I want to give one album there. I love that.
All right. I'm going with a pick. I think you'll like this pick, Brad. One of my favorites, definitely of all time. I'm going with the Jay Giles Band, and there's a couple you could go with here, but I'm going with Centerfold.
There you go. You can't go wrong with that one or that video
No.
again.
Awesome pick. All right, I picked the movie with my number 2 overall pick in Rocky 3. I'm taking Eye of the Tiger. Survivor came out May 18th of 82. Hit number 1 that year and ended the year in 1982 as the year-end number 2 overall. Courtney played this song for Paul when he was 4. And his response was, "I don't know what this is, but I need to hear more of it." So, appeals to all ages.
Sure does. That's a good
All
one.
right. Another one. I actually going to pick another album here because it's another one. Again, this
Oh.
is my sister had this album, but this was a video that was ubiquitous on MTV, and I loved this band, and they were so catchy. I'm picking the Go-Go's "Vacation."
Great.
That's a great one.
Yep.
All right, my pick
Very
number
good.
4 now. There's so many good ones. I'm going to go with "Tainted Love"
Oh,
which
you just
was
stole my wife's
released in the
favorite
UK
song
in
of all
81.
time.
That's a shout out to Kim right there. In January of 1982, it was actually released in the UK in 1981, but US release was 1982, so I'm taking it.
Where do we live, Pete? You take the
We
US
live in the
release.
US.
That's right. Great song. I am a huge fan of Marilyn Manson's version of that song as well.
Yes. Oh, so are we both, me and Kim.
And that was also in Not Another Teen Movie.
It was.
And a great video there as well. All right. You talk about picking from the heart. This is definitely me picking from the heart. This was for the longest time my favorite song as a young kid. Came out June of 82. This is Laura Branigan and Gloria. Hit number 2 in the charts. Not a number 1 hit, but I absolutely love this banger. It's just as good when you hear it today as it was back then.
That's one of those great songs.
Oh,
Great
yeah.
pick.
And you try to sing it. I mean, you just try to belt it out as best you can, and it's so good.
Sorry, which song did you say again?
Gloria.
Oh yeah, okay, that's a good one.
I did not have that one anywhere on my list. That's I'm glad you brought that up.
Me too.
All right, I'm
Good
gonna
one.
stick in the new wave category again here. This is one of those songs that I don't think ever gets old. And it tells a story, and it's got I love when the vocals go back and forth. It starts with the guy, turns to the girl. Don't you want me, the Human League, working as a waitress at a cocktail bar?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't ever go wrong with that song.
My last pick is in tribute to my wife. I have to pick this one. Even though I'm taking a small
Chicago.
liberty because it was released in November of 81, but it really gained popularity in 82. I bought her a hoodie with the number on it representing this song, and it's one of her favorite things that she likes to wear. The hoodie just says 8675309, and my wife is Jenny, so I'm going with that one. 8675309, Jenny.
What do you think, Gifford? If it came out in 1981, shouldn't he have to wait till 1981?
You know, here's the thing.
'Cause we're going to do that
he-
this year.
He wove that story so well. This is what I'll say. He can't
Thank you.
pick it. He can't pick it in 81.
All right.
Okay, we'll
well,
give it to him then.
We'll give it to him. I mean,
He
I'm
told
gonna.
the same story in 1981 though.
He could have. That's true. But here's the reason, because I've got a song, and I'm glad he didn't pick my song, and I really want my song for my last pick. So it's really, that's good. Well, who knows? You might pick it.
And I
We'll
will say,
see.
Pete, I wouldn't have questioned. You told us that it was from 81. Otherwise, I wouldn't have even questioned.
I would have
it
never known.
gained- Yeah, it's.
Since you're so
I think
honest,
it was on the charts
let
in
that one-
82, so that counts. Thank you.
So that counts. All right. Brad, what do you got for your last pick?
you didn't pick yours yet.
Oh, I am after Pete. Okay, good. I was going to say. Sorry. All right. This one, I'm going over to the country music side of things. This came out January 22nd of 82, hit number 1. This is Alabama's Mountain Music.
I have
Not the
that
one I
album
thought you were
on
going to
my
go
list.
with when you said country. I have what I feel is a better one. That's a
hey.
country hit.
What, did it come out in 82?
Yes.
First of all, I have
It
Alabama
did. March.
music on my list.
Which one?
Alabama's Mountain Music.
Yep.
I almost picked it. I also have, and I told this story on our previous episode, Sylvia, who sang Nobody. I met her at the Marshall-Lyon County Fair when she performed there, and I thought that was so cool. But I'm going to this is a banger of a country song. This is one of those songs that you might not think of right away, but when I say the name, you're going to be like, yep, I want to go listen to that right now. And this is the Chicken Man himself, Kenny Rogers. Love Will Turn You Around.
Yeah,
That
I
song
looked at that one too.
is so good.
Mhm.
So I'm going to put a country one on here on the end.
Well, you're an 80s country guy.
I know.
You know,
I could have had a
yeah.
lot more, but
You
um,
still didn't hit the one that I'm
we'll
thinking.
save
of
those.
for
We'll save those
country.
when we do our 80s country
Yep.
episode. Pete, why don't you go ahead and
yeah.
finish off your list then?
All right. Well, I've got Abracadabra by the Steve Miller Band.
Oh yeah.
I've got Rosanna by Toto. Here's the country one that I would have picked. Always on My Mind by Willie Nelson. I love that frickin' song.
Yeah.
How did I miss that? I didn't even have that.
You're disappointed by that one. Are we gonna have an argument about the greatness of Always on My Mind?
No, I didn't have it. I'm surprised I didn't have it.
No,
That's
but
a great song.
Brad
Oh.
actually gave a negative reaction. He's like, yeah.
It's a great song. It's
So-
not as fun to me. Like I'm looking for a fun song. It's too serious.
I just think it's a beautiful love song.
is.
Yeah.
I
Well,
agree.
they don't all have to be fun. They can come from the heart. All right. We got The Beat by the Go-Go's, Who Can Now by Men at Work, Maneater, Hall & Oates, I Ran So Far Away, A Flock of Seagulls,
Mhm.
Shake It Up by the Cars, Private Eyes, Hall & Oates, and Freeze Frame, Jay Giles.
Oh, Freeze Frame. I didn't have
Yeah.
that.
That
on
was
my
the other
list
one. I
either.
mentioned Jay Giles Band earlier, and it was a toss-up. Do I take Centerfold or do I take Freeze Frame? Both are great. I took Centerfold. You can
Centerfold.
you can fight about it
Centerfold's-
if you want.
Centerfold's the right pick if you're gonna take one.
Freeze
I think
Frame.
so.
I would have taken the album myself, and just
Yeah.
had both.
God, Centerfold is a great song. That's a great song.
Mhm.
Gifford, what you got?
Anyway,
All right, I've got I'm So Excited by the Pointer Sisters. Don't Talk to Strangers, Rick Springfield. 38 Specials, Caught Up in You. And then I'm going to have 3 country songs here. I've got Bobby Sue by the Oak Ridge Boys.
That's on my mixtape. Yeah.
yes, good one.
We got Slow Hand by Conway Twitty.
My
This
mom's
was the
favorite.
last gold record for Conway Twitty. And the last one I got, Bellamy Brothers, Redneck Girl.
Oh, I love the Bellamy Brothers. Let Your Love
Yeah.
Flow. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm gonna just list them all off quick here. So we did talk last week about the greatest hits. Eagles' Greatest Hits Volume 2 came out in 1982, so that was fresh in my mind. Similarly, Simon and Garfunkel's Concert in Central Park, which is kind of, like a greatest hits. The best band of all time, REM, released their debut EP, Chronic Town, that year. Duran Duran, Rio. Nobody picked Duran Duran or mentioned Rio. With but Hungry Like the Wolf is my the whole album,
Did-
Rio. Hungry Like the Wolf.
Did you take? You took that earlier. So Duran Duran did get some love here,
No,
or not?
nobody-
They did not even
it
get
was
mentioned.
on
Nobody
my-
took it.
Nobody took Duran Duran at all. Wow, that's an
Mm-mm.
I did have
oversight.
Hungry Like the Wolf on my mixtape. I had Do You Believe in Love by Huey Lewis. Chicago, Love Me Tomorrow. You Got Lucky by Tom Petty. And I had Bobby Sue by the Oak Ridge Boys, who I saw in concert around this time.
Oh,
The Safety Dance, Men Without Hats came out this year.
Oh,
And I Melt With You, which didn't really get popular till that's a song everybody calls a one-hit wonder. It never really charted, but there's a fun story about that song. But that's a great song because Valley Girl came out. Couple more Missing Persons, they Destination Unknown and Words, awesome songs. I remember when Pete listened to those back in that time, he thought those stood out, were great. The Clash, Should I Stay or Should I Go? Billy
Oh,
Idol,
yeah.
White Wedding. The Stray Cats, Rock This Town.
oh
Depeche
yeah.
Mode.
God, we could go on.
Depeche Mode, Just Can't Get Enough. XTC, Senses Working Overtime. In Excess, The One Thing. The English Beat, Save It for Later. I heard this one on the radio the other day. Anna Matt, Goody Two Shoes. And
Mhm.
you mentioned I Ran, Pete. But if you want to hear the best Flock of Seagulls song, you listen to Space Age Love Song, which should actually be in my top 5. That song is one of the best songs of the 80s. And
Yeah.
nobody thinks of it because they always think of I Ran.
I ran.
This
yeah.
song is amazing.
Yeah.
I could go on and on, but that pretty much hits it.
Well, and the
What we
music
did
always
prove
takes
is
the
that-
longest.
Well,
It always
this
takes
is a
the
great
longest,
year.
and it's always the most fun to do. But you really just dig in, and there's so many great songs to choose from in every year. So
I think music
like
is
when
the winner. Just music in general is the overall winner of 1982 compared to TV and movies.
Well, that's when we
TV was
originally-
good, but movies was really disappointed.
when we originally did this episode. that's where I came up with the idea to do the mixtape because it was just too much and I couldn't decide what to pick. So worked out great.
And even that was hard.
Yeah, you're right, because I just named most of those songs that are on that playlist, but you guys named a bunch more. I added a bunch more this time. I mean, most of the songs picked tonight weren't on that, so and we could find so many more. You did mention Toto Rosanna, but like Toto 4, that album with that, just enormous came out that year.
All right.
Some good stuff
Hey.
when we were 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Gifford.
Hey, what?
Do you know which band Mr. T actually did backup vocals for?
Yeah, that was Preacher Row, I believe, just for one year, correct? He wasn't a mainstay.
And then
just did it
Hummel
for
kicked
1
his
year.
ass. They
Yeah,
got in a
exactly.
fight, and the drummer kicked his ass.
Mhm.
I didn't have much
Exactly.
else, but I thought that was a good one since Mr. T was getting so much else love, so much other
Yep.
love.
So much else to love.
So
All right, well,
so
if
much
you
else love.
enjoyed this one,
Anything else you want to say before we?
I would like
Well,
to
yeah.
say that happy birthday, Pete. I know what you're fishing for.
Thank you.
But this episode, I feel like, was a little loose for us compared to some others. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it wasn't terrible. And I hope you tell somebody to listen to our show because we had a really good time. And if you came across that way and you had a good time, then that's all that matters.
That's right.
If there's one
We're gonna
thing
have a
about us
really
is
good
that we
time.
like them loose.
We're going to have a really good time next week talking about those Looney Tunes cartoons.
Mhm.
So we'll see you then.
Absolutely. And for this one, bedeep, bedeep, bedeep. That's all, folks.
Oh, nice job. Bye.
Standing on my own 2 feet. No one's here to comfort me. Sorry for what I have done. Sorry that your song is gone. 7 steps and it will be my last. Hands tied, tell me on my back. I turn and I look to you. I'm scared, but there's nothing I can do.